Welcome to the Positive 10 Podcast, where your stories and soul work matters. Now let's dive in. Welcome, everybody, to today's show. Thank you for being here. If one of the things I'm going to bring up is today's Substack that I brought in. It's a story. It's called Finding Joy When Life Doesn't Feel Joyful. It's a reflection on Paul's writings. It's from the biblical part of the world of the but I was reading it and I was like learning about his writings and what he was talking about. And if you're not familiar with him, he was imprisoned and he was facing some death. He was facing death. He actually was finally executed at the time. Yet he still be able to hold on to joy. It really made me think about how often we miss the small moments of joy in our lives. It's on my Substack if you want to go read it, and it's also posted on other platforms as well. On this Wednesday, we continue with Remy's journey. It's chapter 13. It's the soldier's goodbye. It's titled. The responses to this series has been incredible. So thank you very much for everybody who's been reaching out. I deeply appreciate it all. So thank you for doing that. And the response, like I said, the response is awesome. In this chapter that we're talking, and it's mostly throughout this journey of his, Remy begins to come to terms about life with the quiet spaces of people leaving. It's the grief, the loss, all that stuff that we all kind of go through when people pass on and things like that. But the best part of this is I'm writing this in the voice of Remy. And in the hopes of helping other people, maybe adults, but mostly my focus has always been to a child. And it's not that it's still adult content, but it's in reference to a child and helping them understand about life, love, loss, and what truly matters, So that's what we're talking about. And that's what's happening on this Wednesday. And we'll continue to go through that as well. And if you're new here, Remy is our support dog, who I recently discovered that he has taken over my Substack, and he's a self-appointed acting editor. So I don't know what that's going on. I gotta talk to him, but he's not here right now to do that. He's getting groomed. He's lucky. Anyways, I also want to send out some positive thoughts to Hassan, my co-creator on Ciao Bella, who has gotten injured. It looks like he's been laid up pretty good for the last week. The project of Ciao Bella is still going on, moving forward. Next week, I'm hoping to meet with a couple people from the Italian Cultural Center in Vancouver to talk about what's the next steps, and also hopefully I can get some more stories from some of their members about the families saving lives in World War II in northern Italy, particularly in the region of Veneto, Treviso. It's somewhere in between Milan and Venice, if you want a little bit more reference. And there's a big mountain called Monte Grappa. So that's just some FYI. Also, just a quick reminder, the podcast will be taking on a short break. And we'll be back on September the 14th. And the first show coming back, we'll be talking to Gary. And it's a very special story about love. It's a very powerful and a beautiful story about love, loss, and, it's sad, but it's also tells you what life is about too. So I'm looking forward to talking to Gary and how we got together through the internet. So I think it's kind of cool. During this time, I will still continue to post stories, but there will be no podcast, like I said. But I'll also be finishing up some of Remy's journey. Hopefully by the end of the month. Maybe we'll be finishing that book, and it'll go into editing, and then from there, all your suggestions, all that, I'll put that into account, and then I'll do a huge editing program, or I'll be spending down time editing and trying to get that out hopefully before Christmas. That's my goal, but we'll see what happens there. Now, I'm excited about this conversation today. We are so today we're joined with Erin Gregory, the writer behind self-led life. Yeah, that's it. So I'm excited about bringing that on, and let's put this up there. This is her Substack. Erin built her business around something deeply important to her children and the life she actually wanted to live. Now she writes honestly about what it takes to get there, the challenges of building a career while raising a family, and what happens when the traditional system doesn't fit the life you're trying to create. Boy, do I know that too. Today, we're going to talk about with her story, the soul work behind it, and why she chose to share with others. Yeah, that's going to be awesome. So welcome. Welcome, Erin.
Hello.
Yeah, how you doing?
I'm good.
So we were just talking a little bit backstage about sales and marketing and stuff like that. If you're in that world, you kind of understand it's not always a fun place to be. You're first to be judged and first to be rewarded, but mostly judged and then lost.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're in a very public position, whether you want to be or not.
So let's get started with your story and let's get a little bit of understanding. I'm sure there's some people that don't know you, and I'm sure you're well known from other areas. But tell us what got you down this path of finding your business, your life, all that. What got you here?
Yeah. So when I have a background in public relations, and before I had kids, I kind of dabbled around sales and eventually found my place in nonprofit marketing and learned that I really enjoyed mission-driven work. Between then and having my first daughter, she had some health concerns off the bat. Everything has since been fortunate in that regard, but that first year was extremely difficult. She was colic. She had failure to thrive, torticollis, which just means that she was born with her neck kind of crooked up against her shoulder. We had to do a lot of physical therapy, and she had a really severe milk protein allergy. And as a new mom, I didn't know what I was doing. It was new to my mom, new to my husband's mom. So we were really kind of thrown out into parenthood, and left to swim without a paddle, left to row without a paddle. And so we really had to figure it out. And she forced us to grow up, first of all, but she really forced us to start prioritizing what was actually important in our lives. And that was the first of many lessons that would follow. And because of her condition, I couldn't work anymore. I was an entertainment publicist at the time. And so I started freelancing, which basically involved me reaching out to some of my contacts at the entertainment company that I had worked at and saying, hey, do you need help in anything that I can do part-time? I knew nothing about fractional work, about contracts. I mean, I was 28 and very green in the whole field. So I really just was trying to keep my foot in the door. And that experience taught me a little bit about being strategic when you're put up against a wall with your career. So that propelled me into the world of journalism and freelance writing. And I carried that into several moves that came after. We moved around quite a bit with my husband's job at the time. And through working at the YMCA, I did part-time work for them and eventually built that into a permanent role. And then COVID hit. And so at that stage of life, I now had 3 kids. I had about 10 years of experience under my belt, and the job market had nothing in the sense of marketing, especially for nonprofits, right? Because at that time, a lot of nonprofits had really cleaned house and they were down to the bare bones of anything. So I did what I do, which is network online. We talked earlier, LinkedIn is like my best friend when it comes to business growth. And I reached out to some folks in Columbus, Ohio, and was fortunate to get a response from a gentleman who was the president of the chamber at the time and had need for somebody to manage a newsletter for his business. And that job really started to teach me the ins and outs of consulting, of fractional work. He eventually hired me to launch his second business. So I learned that whole process. And, the long and the short of it is I took all of that experience that I had captured throughout that 12-year time frame, ups and downs, positives and negatives, and I combined all of that experience into a unique model that worked for me. And there are a lot of stories within the story, so I'm telling a very condensed version of it, but I know we'll dive into some more specifics. But what started 13 years ago, my oldest daughter is now 13, grew into what is a full-fledged business where I operate about 8 clients at any given time. I'm a solopreneur, but I have a lot of partners who I work with. I'm actually writing a contract with one at the moment who are going to do a full go-to-market plan with a client here locally. And I have ownership over my days, which was the whole goal at the end of the day, right? I hated getting up and having to stare at my computer for 9 hours a day in meetings and having to hire a nanny to work 5 days a week, 8 hours a day, just so I could get my job done. And I just had this idea that there's got to be something that works a little bit better for us as a family, for me personally, than this. I had very little time to actually exercise, and I talk a lot about a third space, a place that is just for you and your wellness. And so all of those pieces of my life that I really wanted, I couldn't fit them in with that traditional workday. And I learned that there are a lot of other parents and just individuals who feel that way. That's been the beauty of launching this Substack and what is the self-led life, which is really a life where you allow your values, your interests, and your unique capabilities to drive your path forward. And what I've gone through a few coaching courses, and they all kind of align with this, what the market needs and what are you good at? And I was like, well, where are we in that mix? Where is what I love about work and what is important to me on a day-to-day basis? Where does that fit into a work mold? And so I built one. And I am in finishing stages of getting that published and out into the world.
Yeah.
But I apply it to a few clients who I work with now. I'm actually going to do a live session with Tracy Edwards of Let's Get Unstuck to kind of exhibit what that process looks like to help you find alignment between your personal and professional life, because I don't see them as two separate things.
Right. Yeah, that's, I think we're all kind of figuring that out ourselves. I mean, for those who are diving in this and start discovering they have a voice, they're starting to enjoy some of the things that they're doing. Their hobby is becoming more of, no, I wouldn't say work, but more of a pleasure that kind of matters versus something that they've been doing that, fulfilling other people's, cupboards other than their own. And the challenge behind that's the tough part. And that's really messy. So let's talk about the messy middle that you've described. What does that look? What was it? Part of it, the children, the work, or what did it look like?
Yes. So that is exactly right. So the messy middle is really fun. That's kind of like my passion project. So I started the messy middle back when I first dove into Substack, and I really wanted to be a live, messy, living example of what it looked like to build a brand and build a life aligned. And so I started Substack and ended up falling in love with it, like so many of us have. And I decided, I really need to think out loud. I'm a journalist by nature, so I wanted to research and I wanted to interview people to better understand what I was doing. I knew kind of where the end goal was, but I didn't know how to get there. And the best way to figure it out is just to start doing it. So I started hosting interviews with colleagues I knew who knew me and who knew what I was all about. So I had that trust factor there, and having conversations with them about these challenging moments that were defining in their lives and what they did with them. And what I found throughout these conversations is, for one, we all go through hard times, and so many of those situations can feel isolating and that they're secluded to just us. And it's just not the case, right? So many people, everybody really goes through really difficult situations, losing family members, losing jobs, having to relocate and start over. And, we've been through the gamut, my family and I, my husband and I in particular. And so I just wanted to bring those to the forefront and then show how you can take those situations and let them catapult you into something better instead of getting lost in them.
Yeah.
And that is really how my whole business and philosophy was formed, by after all these different situations we went through and letting them inform us of how we could do better instead of letting them lead us down a dark path or depression. And we've had our fair share of that too, trust me. So it's not like we've got this rose colored view of life. It's a very realistic view, but it's also this understanding that we make it what we decide to make it. So by bringing that camaraderie to the audience, by sharing some of those lessons, and I share some tactics from what I share with clients, so they feel like they've got some value at the end of the day. And then some really inspiring stories from folks who are doing cool things with all of their, all of their experiences.
Yeah. So that's, when I started this journey 4+ years ago, I was just a reader. I didn't know what Substack meant. Didn't know. I was just playing around with it. And then I just had an inspiration to write stories of other people and then just post them. And, Substack has come a long way. I mean, there was no notes at the time. It was mostly like a blog site where you just basically post and then you had to solicit your thing. So you went to other social medias and start posting it all over the place to gather more readers that way, or more subscribers. And then, everything I've been doing is mostly test and learn. And it's just, there's nothing. I mean, when you look at the podcast from I did a podcast before too. From that podcast, what was all there was no visual. It was like you just posted on Apple and it went somewhere. It was all it's all audio, so it was an audio type podcast, to now a visual podcast, which gets done in two ways. One goes to audio, one goes to a couple other sites, obviously. So when I started this journey, it was messy. It was completely messy because I was looking at like time with, I got work, I got to write, I have a family, I got other responsibilities. How do I put that together? And that's probably one of the toughest part to do, is to, like, you have an inspiration to do something that your heart's leading you to do. The hard part is figuring it out. And sometimes it's not always a straight line, I always say. Is that similar to what you were kind of going through, kind of like a test and learn and kind of like figuring it out as you're going along?
Yeah, absolutely. And go ahead.
No, go ahead. No.
I was just going to say we're in similar fields, John, right? And marketing and sales are like, if there are two things that are right together, it's those things. But yeah, the testing, you have to test things. And if you're, especially, if I'm with a new client, I always kind of give that caveat, like, based on experience, this is what I'm going to recommend, but we're not going to really know until we see the results, and then you pivot and you adjust and you tailor it more to the audience's response. And so that's what I was really doing. I was testing out my message, my approach, and learning what I wanted to actually talk about. Yeah. And it's really funny because the most compelling stories I've shared are the ones that are deeply personal. And what I always tell clients, and what my approach with clients is, is bring yourself and your authentic perspective to your brand. Now, that doesn't mean that, we want the CEO of a company standing out there with political signs and preaching. That's not what it means. It means what got you to where you are and what knowledge and what experience you bring in that field is a really beautiful and relatable thing. And so I started to talk about my experiences, and that's kind of where the book started to develop. And I've got so many stories from the workforce, as well as stories of parenthood, that really connect to one another. How I raise my kids, there are a lot of similarities with the lessons I teach them and what I bring to clients. And being a mother has made me a better leader. And so the fact that we try to isolate those things is just crazy to me, after having kind of been there and done that for a little bit.
So there's a couple things you said there that I think we need to really focus on or put attention to it, because I think that's where, first off, learning to pivot. That's the biggest thing that I think everybody needs to understand. Just because it's not working well at this time, you can still continue with it, but learn to play around with your writing style, learn how to do certain things. Because when it happened to me, I kind of like stopped doing the 100-day inspiration. I wish I kept that blog site up. I don't know. I incorporated it. I kind of got rid of it. But anyways, it's still in my archives, but it's not described 100 stories. But when I pivoted and I got into more of a journal, I was journaling the Rediscovery Vancouver, which became a book. I started to become very authentic. In a sense, I started finding my voice. And when I started finding my voice, I was sharing history. I was sharing some personal things or inspirational moments with my own stuff, right? And some historical content and things like that. That kind of took off on its own. It just kind of like people started to really sort of like that, and they started getting interested in it. It was like they couldn't get enough of it, which was good. Which then, so pivoting took me to being authentic be more authentic, finding my voice, finding a rhythm. But it's also throughout the process, I did a couple more things where from there I started to do I started to kind of like figure out what I really wanted to write. And then I was still writing about other people, but I was writing them in a way that I didn't have a backup to their stories. I didn't have for example, I wrote a story about you on Friday.
Which was very well done, by the way.
But it was an evergreen, so it sat there for at least 3 days. And then I post something else today. So the thing was, I wanted to back up to that story because I really wanted to talk about that. But I also started changing my format, which was a year ago. It was still not really clear what it was. Midway, I found Stories, Soul Work, and Substack. That was really the name came down to. And then just recently, I became a lot more specific to what I was trying to produce. So with people they're trying to learn this and starting to get involved, one of the things that I think a lot of people don't understand, it's not where you started, it's where you're going.
Yeah, for sure.
And that involves pivoting, finding your voice. And once you start finding you, boy, you're unstoppable.
Yeah. The rest kind of comes from that. And I bet you learned some pretty cool things about yourself in that journey too.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, it was, don't get me wrong. It wasn't easy. There was a lot of ups and downs, but I think that's where a lot of our stories start. Is like we have an inspiration of something. We want to do that. We go through the motions. And I think it's the change. When we're wanting change, we're not just changing ourselves. We're fighting against the grain.
Yeah.
Because the grain is completely
the hardest part.
Yes, because the grain's telling you, why are you doing that? You got comfort. You have a job. You have this. You have that. but then your inspiration is telling you to do something like your instincts are telling you to do something completely different and telling you not to worry about that, but society tells you to worry about that, so you got fear. And I
Yeah.
think it comes down to wanting. The wanting part of it is probably the hardest part, because I was watching a show and the guy said the biggest thing that comes into our lives is about want. We want more money, we want
Mhm.
more whatever, and that drives the fear, that drives the anxiety, that drives everything. What, that want, rather than just being grateful for what we have and working with it. And I
Mhm.
think that's a in a more higher level conversation, I guess. That's where I think a lot of us fail when we're trying to find our new path, our new journey, our new voice. And I think we just got to be grateful for what we have and just start to appreciate the little things more than just what we want. I don't know if that makes
Yeah,
sense.
well, it
Yeah.
does. And that the anxiety you speak to as well, it often stems from when we don't feel like we're on the right path. Even if we're doing exactly what we're supposed to be doing, there is this anxiety that, like, I don't fit here. I'm not going to do the right thing. I'm not going to deliver the right piece of work, or they're going to figure out I'm a fraud. Whatever that looks like can also be a symptom of misalignment in one area or another.
Right.
And I mean, gosh, everybody anymore battles with anxiety for so many different reasons. But the if you can keep trying to figure yourself out, and it's a constant process. I just had a conversation with a small group that I'm working with currently through Scott Perry's Creative on Purpose. And with that conversation, there was a gentleman on there who said, I love acting. I used to be an actor. Now I'm a project manager. And now suddenly I'm thinking about, well, how could I marry those two pieces together? And he was like, but I'm afraid. I haven't done that before. And it's like, well, tell the fear to shut up,
Yeah.
because what's going to happen if you don't do it? Then you're going to sit there and you're going to wonder, like, what if I had? So even if it fails, and I have some clients on businesses right now, and they apply for a seminar to be a speaker and they don't get the gig. It's like, okay, that wasn't the right fit. Find another one. Like, don't let those little roadblocks keep you from achieving what you want, because it's going to
Right.
be really hard work. You're going to get beaten down a little bit. And the only reason that I feel like I'm pretty good at handling that stuff now is because I've been beaten down so many times, and you just get better at handling it. And to your point, appreciating the small things. Right now, I'm trying to appreciate that right now as my children are running throughout my household going on a podcast. Last week of summer, everybody.
Are they
So, but
going to
yeah, the
school next
hard,
week? Are they
they're
going to
going to
school
school
next?
next week. Thank you, Lord.
Oh, wow.
Love them dearly.
Wow.
But yeah, it's a constant process of figuring yourself out over and over and over again. And
And
that part
you're
never,
not a finished product, though. That's the problem.
no,
You
right.
never will be a finished product. You always will grow. You always will challenge it. If you're in this situation, like I consider myself more of an entrepreneur, but if you're always in
Hmm.
that mindset, you're always challenging yourself. You're always questioning certain things. You're always not questioning the sense of your doubt. It's mostly like, what happens if I do this, or what happens if I do that? What's the outcome? What's the ROI? Like, you're always thinking about what's the return investment on it, and things like
Yeah.
that. And sometimes it's okay to think that way, and sometimes it's not okay to think that way. Um, it's just been, you know, I think the journey of writing and using Substack, that it's great, but even social media itself is not, it's perfect. Because I remember I remember watching YouTube, and there was always this group or two. They made a production team, and then they sold it, and now they're not on YouTube anymore. They're gone, and you kind of
Hmm.
like miss those authentic, those little moments, because they were really authentic. You know, they replaced the TV more or less, because they were funny. They were cute. They were genuine. It was all the above, and I think that's where a lot of people loses their voice when they start getting they get too commercialized.
Mhm.
But if you keep yourself in a very authentic scene, you'll always will have a voice, and you'll always will be okay in so many ways. I think that's why I think I don't want to get too, like, not that I want to be, no, my goal here basically is to share stories and try to help other people along the way. That's really what I'm trying to do.
Yeah.
If things happen where it becomes better than it is today, I'm grateful for that. But that's not what I'm looking for. I'm looking to help people along the way. That's really what comes down to it. And I think a lot of people don't think that way. They think more of, what do I get out of it?
I would say the what's in it for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Well,
that's
and
the hard part.
there's so many creators out there, John, that like if anybody has any fear of embarrassment or not being relevant or whatever, just look at like any of the cat memes, like literally anybody can just skyrocket off if that's your goal. But
Yeah.
if you want to really focus on bringing some value into your audience and connecting with people who will find that unique value that only you can provide, you have to be authentic. And there is a significant rise in authentic storytelling. I just wrote about this because like I
Oh,
said,
really?
I'm a bit of a research nerd. So I follow a number of publications that speak to my different focus areas, but there's a rise in authentic storytelling because of AI. And I wrote about this like a year ago, and I was like, authentic storytelling is always going to have a place. And then all of the AI gurus were like, no, AI is going to take over content. And I was like, I just don't buy it. I just don't. How many times can you quietly read something? And so here we are in authentic voices because people want to know that there's a real person behind the brand. And I just don't think that's ever really going to change.
No, and that's why I really try to write about stories that I know personally.
Mm-hmm.
And like Remy's journey is personally to me. Like, he's our dog. I gave him a voice. It's mostly comical now on notes, but but it's touching some real stories, like some real gut wrenching, hard to talk about stories to someone, or someone that needs some comfort, or someone understanding how they're feeling, or to a child who is trying to understand what is death, what is love, in so many ways.
Yeah.
What is the avoidance? What does that mean to me? Right. And that's one. And then on Mondays, I starting to get more, my stories are getting more of, I wouldn't say spiritual, but more of the philosophy of life. Like, it's me taking a moment and trying to figure that out and trying to write it out. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I was reading the letter of Paul, which was probably the gut wrenching moments in his life. I don't know if you've read that, but it's just was pretty tough to read. But yet it kept a very positive outlook of how life should be.
Yeah.
And that's something, so, and I took that, I made a story out of it, and I try to reflect back and forth. And I think that's where well, for me, that's how I like to write. I like to read something, ponder on it, and then reflect, and then write about it. That's what I kind of do, and then do that. And that's been more my style in the last, I would say, 3 months than anything else.
Mm-hmm.
And no one can write that. It's
Yeah.
your personal story. It's your, you took a reference of somewhere, and now you're trying to create something out of it,
Yeah,
and that,
yeah. Book writing. I mean, I can do blog writing all day long. I feel like I've been like born and raised doing article and blog writing. Book writing is a whole other beast. I have learned, and finding your voice within that realm, and then understanding what I'm doing with the small group now is really how to hone in on what your message is, because what I find every phase of my life I have like a really interesting to me really interesting story. And so what we're going through now is figuring out, okay, what of these stories is actually relevant to the message that you want to send?
yeah.
But
Oh,
we all have so many great
that
experiences to share.
I'm sorry to add, that is the most important part. Like, my
Mm-hmm.
content is not going to match your content.
Right.
Like, there might be some correlations here and there, but it doesn't fit in your realm,
Right.
right? And your stories maybe won't fit in my realm, but we do collaborate in different ways. And I think that's important. You really need to find, like you just said, you need to hone in, but also make sure it matches your platform. Is that
Yep.
more of an identity than anything else? That keeps the authentic going, but also keeps your branding going as well.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, it's complex even within that, right? Because when I started and I realized, I did an audience analysis after about 6 months and found that I had a lot of professionals following me, and I was like, oh, they must want some marketing support. Like why else would business people follow me? But then I learned after a few stories like literally flopped when I wrote about like my marketing process. And that's around when I came into contact with Scott Perry too. And he was like, nobody gives a shit about how you take professional photos, Erin. And I was like, I know. So it is really relating back to those personal experiences and sharing lessons learned from that lens, and with a perspective of helping the people around you. Obviously when you write, there is a self-serving aspect of it. It's therapeutic. It helps you to really work through whatever it is you're going through. But
Right.
if you want to build a following, if that's kind of your goal, and mine wasn't always to like build numbers. That wasn't what I went to Substack. It was literally a process of discovery, because I've already got a successful business model, and it's like, how do I bring this to the masses? And how do I share what I do so others can be inspired by it? Maybe not do it exactly how I did it, because it is not a one size fits all approach. If you've got kids, if you don't have kids, if you're a caregiver of older parents, if you are a 20 something out of college and trying to figure out how to navigate an insane job market, which is always the case, by the way. What does that resource look like? So this whole writing process and getting feedback from people and having conversations on podcasts with people like you, it has been really helpful in understanding like this is where I can make my biggest impact and where I want to be supportive to others.
Yeah. I mean, when I was, like I said, it comes back down to what you just said was really important, where, you started a journey that started one way, and then you pivoted again, and then you pivot again. And it sounds like you're pivoting again somewhere down here. I don't know where, but it
Always.
sounds like you're always pivoting. But I mean, but that's the work that most
Mm-hmm.
people don't want. And using AI, like, not that I don't care if I use AI. I'm not gonna lie. I use AI
Right.
for editing and making sure my grammar and all that makes sense.
Right.
Um, and that's just like I treat it as if I paid an editor or a ghostwriter to write my story. That's what I'm doing.
Mm-hmm.
But you can tell if it's AI really pretty, like, because they're using a lot of SEOs in there,
Yeah.
and their headlines, they're all this stuff, and you can read someone who's actually written it out and did some AI work, but I mean they're just it makes sense to them.
Yeah.
That's where I think that's where the best part of storytelling is AI is not going to tell you the story. It will help you, but it won't give you the details in the sense of, like, your dad wore a tie that was special to him. Like, it's not going to it's going to always do generality, because that's how it's trained to tell you. It's general things.
Yeah.
But going
Yeah.
detail, it's going to be hard. And I think that's where the authentic voice becomes important in everybody's Substack. So, I mean, we're talking about writing, we're talking about all that stuff. Like, where do you think your content?
Did you hear them?
It's a
Never
live
perfect, John.
podcast. Anything goes.
Anything goes. They're outside the room too. This is what it looks like in the messy middle, everybody. We don't feign perfection around here.
You need is a squirt gun.
Yes, I have a squirt bottle actually.
Do you
So
really? No, I mean,
yeah,
that's like a big, huge one where you just go fire and just like, yeah.
that would be a fun upgrade. Yeah, we've always trained our squirt bottles because it's pretty harmless and it bugs the crap out of them. Yeah, I know. I live in a zoo. That's just the reality of it. I just happen to be better at balancing it than I once was.
Boy, man, I remember those days. Holy smokes. They're
How old are
just
your
all over
kids
the
now?
place. They're in their 20s.
Any
Yeah.
lessons to share?
As they get older, they get more stubborn. They just get, I, you
More
know, just
opinionated.
more opinionated. They know it all. You don't know
Mhm.
nothing.
Yeah.
Um, I think my best years were babies to about 9 or 10 years old. Actually, 11 years old in that time frame, because they were still innocent. They were still kind of like dependent on you. They had the curiosity of life, which was always
Mhm.
cool to watch, um, and just how they interpreted life. Just how they looked at life, and they kind of like that. Those were always those tender years that I'll never forget. As they got older, you're now dealing with more.
Adult problems.
Uh, well, yeah, literally, because they grow up on these stupid apps,
I
and
know.
they're just they know about sex, they know about this, they know about that, and it's just, you talk about the messy middle. That's a lot for a child to
Oh, for
handle.
sure. It's too
The
much. I
commitment,
mean, we
yeah.
we try to we're kind of on the other end of that now, where my oldest is going into 8th grade, and in the last year or so she's getting a little bit teased by her friends for being, and she's the oldest, so she'll be the first to experience a lot of the stuff, right? And my 8-year-old will have already experienced it all by the time she gets to middle school by exposure to her sister. But she's getting teased for not having, watched certain R-rated movies or whatever this channel is on YouTube and stuff, because we do our best to block a lot of that stuff. And, not that we're promoting Bluey in middle school, although Bluey is wonderful. It's more about her experiences being focused on other areas, through athletics, through family vacations, through, something as simple as like going on a walk. And our goal in the summer is to get them off screens after breakfast and not revisit them until bedtime, when they can watch a cartoon or whatever before bed. So a lot of her lack of exposure was just that we didn't want them on screens, period. And we had to loosen the reins a little bit, just because social politics are tough. And I feel that, especially girls, I don't know what it was like growing up as a boy, but girls can be so mean. So it's a hard balance, and trying to equip them to handle life, but not taint them by exposing them to all of the cruelties and just trash that exists online. So we're still kind of navigating that, but they were a huge, huge influence in me going this direction. I mean, my husband has a similar and different story, that he quit his job of 12 years, went back to school, got his master's, because he wanted to dedicate himself to more mission-driven work, and got involved in nonprofit after that, and got back to his music, and he's got a music studio in the basement. And our reality became, if we're raising them to go after their dreams and to do the hard things and to always stay true to themselves, then we better be living that philosophy. And so we really dedicated ourselves to, when we turned 40, like, he produced his first album, and I was supposed to have published my book, but I'm still working on it, because what I found as I was writing it was like, oh man, like, my story's nowhere near ready to share. Like, I actually have to build something that I feel is worthy of this kind of a story. But they became our greatest inspirations, and I write about that a lot. And the lessons that I share, with my kids, are lessons that I learned from work, and vice versa. And I just feel like there's this really powerful connection in who we are as professionals and who we are as parents, that we ignore. And it's because we've been taught to segment our lives. And I just don't agree with it.
No, it's a blend. I mean, I think today's workforce is a blend of family, life, wellness, inspiring community. I think it's all
Mm-hmm.
that. And I think that's something that we've lost in the last 15 years.
Yeah.
I think after 9/11, well, newspapers used to be, well, I used to work in newspapers. So when newspapers couldn't handle the sales, the news cycle.
Mhm.
That was probably the toughest times, you could ever keep the newspaper on those streets, because it was just dead within an hour, of reading.
Yeah. I have such a
And
passion for the news industry, like the traditional news and reporting
yeah.
industry. There's still something so great about it, and yeah, it has really struggled in the last decade in particular.
Well, it's like that. Then you got the rage baits that happens all the time on social
I know.
media. And that's why you talk about protecting your content or protecting whatever. I remember last week someone reached out, because I'm working on this author rise type thing, which is, it's sort of working and it's not working, but I haven't really put a lot of attention, because it takes a lot of time. But it's an organization where writers help writers, more or less,
Hmm.
and we all combine. I got this WhatsApp going. We're a group where people can say, hey, I need readers, can anybody read my story, to do whatever, to help them with that. Hey, I'm about to do a book launch, who wants to help me? And that's the idea behind all that, is to really help each other. And then there's a resource center where, if you're new, you can come in, you can read all that stuff and kind of go through there, or you can participate in podcasts and try to get people there so they can contact
Get some
them and do that.
exposure. Hmm.
Yeah. And I built the website off of Shopify, but I didn't like how I ended up with, and I just stopped, because I was like so like annoyed with it, because I was like, it's
Yeah.
not what I wanted, and I
Well, and
paid
it's so
somebody.
hard when it's just you two,
Yeah,
because
it's
you got to
hard.
motivate yourself endlessly.
Yeah. And so, but my point is, so someone reached out, and they were very politically charged,
Uh-huh.
and there was a cause. It's a noble cause. I agree with that. But and they have a grassroots, and it would have been a great correlation or some type of partnership that would have put that. But then it would have been consumed in this huge thing, and it would have turned into political. And that's not something I want to do on Substack. I don't really want to do that at
Right.
all,
Right.
because it kind of dilutes what we're trying to do, is, especially here, is to tell stories that help other people, lift people. I
Hmm.
think talking politics is pushing people down.
Yeah,
And
it's just become a fear mongering hate machine, and it's too bad because there's so much potential to improve where our society and where our economy is right now. I mean, there's endless potential to make it
yeah.
better.
Oh yeah.
um, but we continue to focus on all of the bad things because that's what drives attention. And the attention is what drives funders, and the whole cycle. We don't
Yeah.
need to spin round and round about it. But yeah, it is really too bad. And that was, not politics per se, but the whole system. Once you kind of have that awareness of like, okay, first of all, I don't have to do it the way that they set it up. There's really nobody telling me, but then the idea of going off the grid and doing your own thing, and whether it's choosing different politics, choosing a different religion, choosing a different job, whatever that looks like, it is very difficult and very scary. But if you can find yourself and you can stay true to that person, it gets easier. And eventually, whatever you stir up in the process, if you disappoint people or if you frustrate people or whatever, they eventually will learn, like, okay, she believes in what she's saying. She's not going to change her mind. I'm going to stop trying to argue with her about it, which is eventually what happened with me, because I'm not the black sheep in my family, but I'm definitely not the traditional.
I'm the black sheep.
And yeah, are you?
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm definitely like not the clear and narrow path.
You want to be part of the coalition of black sheeps?
Let's do it. Bring me on. Yeah, we'll start some t-shirts. But yeah, I mean, the self-led life is a whole, like, it's a black sheep philosophy. It's saying,
Yeah.
like, forget what you were told. Instead, look within. What is important to you? What makes you really excited to learn about? Go towards those things. Stop looking over here. and figure
And those are
yourself out.
distractions that
For sure.
because like, for example, you spend so much time over here, and it's not capitalizing your potential.
Hmm.
Regardless, it doesn't have to be monetarianism. It could just be self growth,
Yep.
because you focus over here distracts you from everything you're doing that's over here, that is actually feeding you good stuff. It's feeding you. It's feeding
Yeah.
your spirit. It's your mind, your growth, all that. And if money does not come, I mean, Colonel Sanders was 80, is it 80 years old or 70 years old before he
When you
first has
started
sold his
Wendy's.
first, when he started selling his first chicken. And he went door to door.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
mean, think about it.
there's endless distractions, and I could go down a rabbit hole, which I won't, about how those distractions are intentional to keep you where you are.
Oh, absolutely.
Right? Because the
Yeah.
machine runs on that. But forget it. And that's what, I have a couple of conversations coming up with some college classes with a couple of folks who I've aligned with, who are speaking to the same sort of philosophy in their own way. And I'm speaking to those college students, and I just want to be like, don't listen to anything they're saying. But a perfect example is my daughter has been a counselor in training, a CIT program at the YMCA,
Yeah.
which is phenomenal. She's getting workforce training at 13. It's free because she's a volunteer. Technically, she's not actually allowed to oversee children,
Yeah.
and they've got 16-year-olds who are in, they've got a whole tier of people. But the point is, she's done it for 2 years now, and she won't get paid until she's 16. She's a volunteer until that is. She's like, I think I've kind of gotten everything out of this job that I can. And I was like, then you need to be done with it. This is a great example of when the job no longer serves you, to get yourself out of it. Now, granted, she's 13 and does not rely on a paycheck.
Yeah.
So that's slightly different. But it's still a lesson I want her to know now, right? Like, do not get in a job and stick with it for 20 years if it's terrible. I mean, my husband was in his job for 12 years, and could have left that job after year one. And we tried, and you can blame the economy, you can blame the fact that we had kids during that time, and I couldn't really work very much because of health issues and stuff. There's a number of things, but like when he finally reached that point where he was like, this job is sucking my soul, and we lost his father-in-law that same year, it was really like, okay, reevaluate everything now, because if this current position is no longer serving us, it's gonna come out one way or another. And more often than not, it comes out at home, because you got to perform for the job, you got to make the paycheck. But don't think that experience is just it's just letting you skate by. It's going to hurt you in other areas, and that's what we learned, and that's what we didn't want for them to experience. So as they started to get older and they started to get smarter and pay more attention to our behavior, that's when we were like, all right, we got to start over, do this thing again. And we packed up during the pandemic and moved to Columbus and never looked back.
Wow. You said something, another thing is that when it stops serving you. So my son just graduated from Pitt and in cybersecurity. So that's where he's at. And
he'll have a stable career.
That's going to be it if he does. But then he's at work and he goes, Dad, it's just really boring. All I do is just sit around and do nothing really. Like he's not stimulated. And I said, then you need to build a side hustle.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, that's a perfect opportunity. Yeah. Keep that stable income and you build on the side.
I said, that's what I said. And he goes, well, he goes, no, I'll just go to the boss and I'll ask for more responsibility to get paid more. And I'm like, no, why would you do that? You're putting yourself in a position where you're taking on more responsibility with no more money. Trust me, you're probably gonna.
I was gonna say they're not gonna pay you that easily.
It's not that easy. And he's like, well, I said, if you did a side hustle that stimulated what your interest truly is, then it's gonna actually, it's gonna parlay into something completely different. And because you have that city income, you're gonna probably work 4 or 5 hours a day, anyways. Take those other hours, use it to your advantage. And he just. But the problem is that, I have that entrepreneurial spirit and his mother doesn't. So she's a very steady
Mhm.
Eddie, got 50 years in a job, blah, 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 which,
Sure. And you can have great experiences doing
right.
that. I mean, this is certainly not to shut down the traditional workforce. It is very effective for so many people. This is for the folks who are not happy in their current
Well, he says
situation.
he's not, like he said he's bored and not happy, right? So that's a
Right.
live example where I just said, then mother's son who moved from the area that we live in to Vancouver and basically became isolated in some ways,
Oh,
and not in a very
okay.
bad,
What does he
not
do?
a bad way, just like he kind of moved on his own. He was living with family, then decided to live on his own, so he's kind of
Mhm.
isolated himself. And he was talking to me the other day or something like that, and I said, I'm proud of you, first off, to do that. It takes a lot of
Yeah, it's
balls.
hard.
It takes a lot of balls to move across the country and go live on your own and figuring it out. I said, but
Mhm.
now is the time for you to figure it out. If you can figure out
To do the hard work.
if you figure it out now, the rest of it will be easier. Guaranteed.
Yeah, because you'll know
Yes.
how. You'll understand what fuels that for you. I mean, for me, and I talk about that third space, a place that's just for you, and we touched on this a little bit earlier, but a place that is just for you and your wellness. And for me, I was a born and bred athlete. I'm very physical in how I process things. And I swam through college, and then I started running after I had McKinley, and that was a huge part of what got me back to myself, because I went through postpartum depression with what she was dealing
Mm.
with and everything, and was very much like in a place of like, my life is awful. Like I cannot make my daughter healthy. I don't know what's going on in my life. I can't work right now. And I learned, this sounds a little nasty, but I learned that the longer I ran, the more time to myself I got. And we've got a child who's colic literally 24 hours a day. I mean, Mike and I would take turns sleeping because she wouldn't sleep.
Mm.
And so that time to myself running fueled everything that came after. And now I've got endless injuries from beating myself up, but now I talk about gardening as that space for me.
Yeah.
And people have asked me, like, "Are you going to teach how to garden?" I was like, "That's not the point. The point is not that I am this master gardener. The point is you have to have a place that you come back to yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have an injury and you can't run anymore, then you better figure out what the next thing is that you're going to do,
Active
because you
ones.
always have to have, yeah, And I mean, writing is a certain element of that. For my husband, it's music,
Yeah.
like that activity that lets you just think and be free and with yourself and process. You have to constantly find that, whether it's in Vancouver or at home.
Yeah. And there was another story that I can share. So there's this lady who is 91 years old, her, kind of like struggling, walking. She's a textbook health issue, right? She's got all these
Mm-hmm.
elements and things like that. And someone asked me, we were talking about it, and someone said, well, why don't you think she wants to move forward? Like, why? It's because she's at end of life. She's 91 years old. You're not going to make a
Mm-hmm.
91-year-old who thinks that they survived cancer, they've lived beyond what anybody else expected to do. She outlived
Yeah.
her healthiest husband, who was a weightlifter, and so outlived him. And she's plotted on the couch or on the chair, her favorite chair, and that's where she is day and day night. I said,
Oh,
I know it's sad, but
yeah.
the thing is that she's kind of like living the minutes before she passes on.
Yeah, she's tired. It's a lot of
Yeah.
work. I mean, I don't I kind of don't blame her. Like I always joke when I'm older, I was like, I'm just gonna get fat and happy and like do what I want, eat what I want. Like I'm not gonna worry about my heart because I'm gonna have made
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
Like, it's probably not true. I really hope to be hiking into my 90s
Oh, me too. Like
dragging him along.
so my model is use it or lose it. That's really
Yeah,
comes.
you will.
Yeah. So you have to keep doing.
Yeah.
And I got plantar fasciitis because of the years of
Oh,
pounding on my leg.
I've had that before.
And
It's a rough one.
oh, it is tough. But, I'm going through, but that's the thing. Like, I'm rebuilding some of my muscles that I don't build. Like I do go work out every day or try to, but I mean, like I am doing something actively, but there's certain, like I'm learning different muscles operate differently. And there's different ways, I didn't realize, trust me, I played semi-pro baseball, man. Like we played a lot of baseball. We ran, we climbed up the green wall and
Yeah.
all that kind of stuff.
I've got 2 in softball. It is like, as a
Yeah.
swimmer, like softball, so much more fun.
But I mean, like,
I can see why it's like,
yeah, but
they're America's favorite sport.
but we didn't, and I played hockey, all that kind of stuff, but we never thought of like your ankle, your foot, like that was never the prime of conditioning. It was mostly your
Yeah.
thighs and your chest, your arms, and longevity, like, how long you can run, like all that stuff. But, that's the thing that I don't like today is like, now I'm learning I missed a whole segment of conditioning that I should have paid attention to. I can't run like I used to, but I got bad knees, but that's the part of, but then again is like, what am I doing? Like you said, what am I doing to add activity in my life? Because I think activity,
Are you pivoting?
yeah, like pivoting, but activity creates inspirations or thoughts and minds, because you're always constantly thinking about what's there, and you're always thinking about how things in your situation can be, you're always appreciated more because those activities like, I mean, when I come out of working out, I feel better, I feel good. Go for a walk, I feel great, like,
get a little fresh air, feel more motivated for your day, feel more confident because you've done something good for yourself. I mean, I've my kids are in sports all summer, but when they have downtime, you better believe I'm getting them out there and they're going on walks with me, and I try to keep it fun so that they can find in it, not just like beating them with a HIIT workout, although I have done that too.
Let me tell you, rowing, I don't care what anybody says,
that's hard.
Sucks.
Yeah, it's really hard. That's how I feel about cycling. When I had plantar fasciitis too after my second daughter, and it was devastating because I had done like 4 half marathons by that point, and I was like my zone, and then I got plantar fasciitis, and it is debilitating.
Yeah.
But I started cycling, and man, I hate cycling.
We used to bike race when we were young. I still bike. Like I can actually, there's a guy that I follow on YouTube. His name is Brian, and he does downhill videos, and I love it because it's like, I feel like I was
doing like a stationary bike and watch it.
Yeah. I used to have my bicycle in the house until Marie said, "Get it out."
I did it for a while, and it got me back, and I started back with like doing mini triathlons, which is fun too, and I can kind of pick those up because swimming is usually everybody's weakest link. Mine is obviously cycling. And when I did that race, I came in 4th after the swim, and then I dropped literally to 250th after the cycle. It ended up somewhere in between, but I just remember those numbers because I was like, man, I am like really bad at cycling, but I don't have a desire to get better at it. So it's kind of, what you need to figure out. Find your place. Don't try to force it.
No, and that's the thing. I mean, like, I'm kind of like, now it's more not, I wouldn't say maintaining. I don't want to use maintaining. It's longevity. It's building
upkeep.
Longevity.
It's kind of
upkeep. But it's a longevity. And that goes to the pit, like, younger was more of doing, because you
hardcore conditioning.
You're kind of like doing all that. And then as I'm a little older now, so it's just more longevity. So there's a lot of things that most people don't. Like I said, I didn't realize half the stuff that I was doing was harmful to me, in the sense of,
well, and I think we've learned so much about athletics and nutrition and all of that since when we were kids, and still a huge fan of carb loading before a long race. That's still gonna, but it's come such a long way that I think there's just a lot more knowledge around how to do it differently than when we were kids. I mean, I knew about nutrition. My mom always did a lot of home cooked meals and was great in that sense, but there was never an understanding of just how many carbs you needed, how much protein you needed, balance with vegetables, and now the issue, of course, is the quality of the food that we're getting, and that's just a whole nother rabbit hole, that we could go down. So, and that was part of the inspiration for the garden too. Is like, well, if the world's really going to go to hell in another 100 years, then I want to at least know how to grow my own food so I can survive in my little greenhouse while everyone else is doing the best.
That's we talk about some, so there's two things I always cook my meals fresh, right? Mm-hmm. I try to cook it like from scratch, but there's two things they'll never want to, two things I avoid as much as possible. The microwave, my
husband uses the microwave too.
I rarely use it. I may use it once in a blue moon for a quick warm up, whatever it is. And plastic. I try to avoid as much plastic as possible. And it's always in a jar, or when I'm keeping things going, I always put it in a jar or put it in glass containers. Because it's better kept, honestly, than plastic.
Yeah.
And
we try to do as much whole food as we can. We order pizza every Friday night. There are some things, as my favorite nutritionist Kelly O'Hara on Substack, she would say, you got to live your life. You have to find the right amount of balance to still give you something to be excited about. But I like feeling good about what I eat.
Yeah, I mean that's the point of it. That's where you want to enjoy it. You want to enjoy life. It's about longevity. It's about, boy, I learned about a lot about that this weekend. Longevity.
Yeah,
it was there is a spa that they're creating. It's called a fitness spa, but they have it in a way that you do the red lighting, you do the oxygen when you run or biking. And there's three things. It was the red light, oxygen. I can't remember what the third one was, but there was three of them. And the spa, it's supposed to be a spa fitness. So you're working, and it's supposed to help you create longevity. Oh, and a steam room. So they're thinking of things that are really, really important in your life, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of people don't have those. So if they can, and the guy's making 800 spas just for that.
Wow.
And make
that's cool.
He wants to make it affordable for anybody to do it.
Love that too, because those are all the things you listed are usually pretty high ticket items. We're fans of the sauna. I mean, I struggle in anything that's too hot at this phase of life, but I know it is really great for you for detoxing and getting rid of a lot of those negative things that float around in your body. So that's a really great. I've never done the oxygen room before. I'd be curious to try that. Does it make it easier to exercise, or is it just a way of measuring?
I really don't know, but it's pure oxygen. It's supposed to make you endure longer.
Yeah, I think it's better for you so that you can circulate.
So once you start feeling I think it's once you feel you're out of breath. And quote me, I don't know 100%. I'm just learning about it.
I'm gonna go dig into it now, Don.
And you fact check. Okay.
Yeah. No, I know nothing about it. So
no, I know. No, it's just, it was interesting because it was about the endurance, but it was also, if you're out of breath, it'll get you more oxygen to help you get going. And apparently you can stay on there longer. So cool. I don't know if
I wonder if that would help with the arthritis that I've got going on in all of my extremities right now. You mentioned bad knees. That's the phase I'm in. What spa is going to help with that?
Well, I know if my knee goes out one more time, I have to replace it.
Do you have pre-existing conditions?
Yeah.
What's your diagnosis? I had knee surgeries when I was in high school from not plantar. That's the other part. ACL.
Cartilage is gone.
Mm-hmm.
It's living on borrowed time.
Oh,
Yeah.
just pounding the pavement too many times.
Nah, sliding into second base a lot of times.
When my kids started softball, that was like one of the first thing I was like, how do we prevent injuries? Asking from somebody who's had
You
her fair
don't.
share. But
You
yeah,
don't.
apparently
And then
softball too that's pretty low instances, which is nice.
and hockey, when you fall, sometimes you fall on your knees. Even baseball, when you slide on your knees or playing
Yeah.
whatever, like the pounding on your knees when there's that was tough. There's a lot of things that I did that I shouldn't have done.
Yeah. Well, so in summation, listen to yourself and your body and continue to evolve to take care of yourself emotionally and physically.
Yeah, we kind of went on a huge tangent, but let's try to pull this back.
I mean, but it all aligns, right, though, John? Like that's the point: is you have to pay attention to every part of yourself, and your career is a huge part of that.
Well, I'm a big believer that health is important. What you eat and what you exercise. It's okay to do certain things if that's your joy, right? But excessively you can't. Like, one of the things I've learned, alcohol doesn't suit me well anymore.
Same here. Yep, we stopped drinking right around the same time as we did all the other things.
Right. And then I still have a drink here and there. I'm not going to be, but I don't drink every weekend. That's not like, geez, if you saw me in the 20s, that's what I did, or after a baseball game, we sit in the clubhouse, we're drinking whatever, but the thing is like health and wellness, like you have to have some type of spiritual thing that you kind of, it doesn't have to be God. It just, you got to have this spiritual connection to something, whatever that looks like.
Sense of morality between right and wrong,
And then you got to have knowledge. You have to always try to grow one way or another. And I think there's a fourth thing, and I can't remember what the fourth thing is. But those three are probably the most important part of your life, that if you can triangulate that, let's just say those three, then you're gonna do better than most, especially here on Substack. Because if you think about health and wellness, that's going to inspire your creativity. It's going to inspire some writing. If you think about the knowledge, if you think about some type of spiritual thing that you're connecting, then that's going to raise some type of value system, some type of moral system, some type of things that maybe I'm going to use Mother Nature. Like, so if you're connecting with
Mother, you're going to go Mother Teresa on me.
No, Mother Nature.
Another good mother.
Mother Nature. You got the trees you're walking through, and you're being appreciative, you're being grateful for all that. That's where I'm talking about more of the spiritual type of stuff, where you're finding more of self-love, right?
Well, it's this understanding that it's not just all about us, right? Like there is so much more and greater that we can contribute to. And one of the things that I was encouraged with, the clients who I work with, the solopreneurs especially, is you have to have community. And a great part of finding community is by giving back. I'm a board member of the YMCA. I'm so grateful for everything they did, from health and wellness to jobs to my kids. So now I serve on the board there, and I volunteer, and it keeps me involved in the organization, which is a very self-involved in my mind, because it keeps me going there to exercise, and then I give my time to them as like a way of saying thank you. But yeah, you have to have that connection with something outside of yourself.
Oh, and the last part, I think community is huge. If you don't, like, especially here on Substack, if we're not connecting with each other, I keep telling people, it's 35 million people that are active every year, every month on Substack. If you're an author and you're trying to write, if you're not posting in here, you're not connecting with other writers, you're with your readers, you're not, I mean, this is the place to you to kind of like find a way to hate to use the word, sell yourself a little bit, and hopefully people buy your books. Because other social media platforms, they don't really care about your books. This is
Right.
where people are reading your stuff. This is where they're understanding who you are. So that's where I think when we talk about, you know, your audience,
Mhm.
Substack is your audience.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean, all of the platforms kind of have their different niche, right? You know, we talked about how LinkedIn is great for building business relationships, and it's my number one lead gen tool if I needed one. You know, you just
Right.
gotta kind of find your niche within that marketplace. But Substack is where you get that freedom of self discovery, of connection and collaboration, and you become a stronger writer for it.
Oh yeah. Oh, I've become a way stronger writer than when I first started. Oh my God,
Same,
yeah.
yeah.
Um, and you're right. I mean, LinkedIn is not for me. It's not a place where I would
Yeah,
post
I know a
stuff.
lot of people who don't like LinkedIn. I don't blame you.
No, no, no. What I mean, like, even if I want to write something, it wouldn't fit my network because it's all business related, right? So they're not going
Yeah,
to
well, that's what I
read.
was saying. It's like I only share certain things on LinkedIn
Yeah,
and I share everything on Substack. That's like my home base. And then select pieces that I know will connect with that audience, I'll share out there. But it's wildly different.
yeah. So like on X, I'll post everything on there, just like I post on here,
Yeah,
because I'm trying to change it up because there's actually a change happening here in on Twitter or X, we want to call it. They're
yeah. And I don't
actually
I don't do X, so I'm a total novice in that regard.
Yeah. So they're actually changing the algorithms in X again, and they're going to try to make it content.
Hmm.
More authentic content means original posts, original pictures, original stuff. That's what they're looking for.
Less
So I've been kind of
promotional.
like upping that a little bit. But I do Facebook, but
Mhm.
that's hard to grow that audience.
No, and
Um,
we kind of all like grew up on Facebook at this stage of the game. You know, it's like our demographic owns Facebook, like,
yeah,
but very few of us actually monetize it.
it was a Craig. I forgot his last name. Seth. Anyways, um, he said something about going on Facebook is like going to Walmart.
No, did you ever follow those like the people of Walmart groups? That just gave me such a great visual.
But it's so true. It's like we really don't want to be on Facebook, but it's like going to Walmart. You know, you go to
Yeah.
Walmart to buy stuff, right? So yeah,
Yes. Only
yeah,
selectively and when you have to, but yeah, it's
yeah.
still there.
So let's try to kind of bring this back all home.
Mhm.
So what are like in your like what is your true intention here on Substack? What is you're trying to get it out and helping people?
Yeah, so what it'll eventually become the main house for my books. I've got one book done that I'm just waiting for approval to print. It's the one I sent you, and as you have time, my busy
Yeah.
friend, I would love for you to read it. But it's about a couple that really inspired me into this journey that I'm in now, who left their six-figure government lush jobs to live off of 20,000 for a year with their three kids, so that they could build their own business. And they're finance geniuses, so they built an investment portfolio of
Mm.
properties. But what's great about that story is that a big portion of their portfolio was spent on building up their hometown. So they purchased, you know, old abandoned buildings and you know, people who are dealing with, you know, mortgages they didn't want to pay anymore. And so they really did some great, beautiful work. And they're now traveling the world. I think they just bought a boat. They're living on a boat for a year. So
Uh,
they're just a really cool couple that inspired me because I saw them and I was like, well, shoot, if they can do it. And that was part of the discovery process. You know, I realized quickly I didn't want to own a portfolio of homes, but
yeah.
I wanted to do something that was unique to me that allowed me to have that freedom. So that's the first book. The second will be my story of building a life of intention around my passions and my family and my work, and how those three things can all coexist in a more cohesive way. And then I share my stories of experience. And most of those I share for free to help inspire the community. And then what my business actually is helping new business owners to either figure out what that business actually is based on their skills. That's what I'm working on with Tracy. Or folks who already have a business, to launch it, set their digital channels, help them to discover what that brand voice actually is, leading with who they are first. And then, of course, the agency side of my business is actually doing marketing and strategy for established brands. So that's the holistic picture.
The marketing stuff is the boring stuff.
The marketing stuff is the boring stuff. I will not write about it anymore. It's a process, people. Progress over perfection is what I always tell my girls.
Well, thank you for joining us today there, Erin. I appreciate your time. I mean, your journey does remind us about all the struggles that we have to go through if we want a different life. And there is a process in it, regardless you want to go through it or not. And sometimes it's, if you keep going through it, it's going to, some people just say, don't keep giving. If you give up, you're not going to know if you did it or didn't. Right. And failure is just part of a lesson, I believe.
Yep.
So, your story matters, and I hope someone out there hears it and hopefully they resonate with it, and hopefully come connect to you and go from there.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. And you'll have to pop on the messy middle sometime, because I know you've got plenty of stories that make sense for that podcast too. So
okay,
we'll schedule that next. That's coming back in the fall. So
yeah, are you on hiatus too? On this?
Well, yeah, summer is impossible to do anything, as you've heard in the background. But I've been interviewing folks over the last about 6 months now, and I'll collect all of those in the fall. And my husband is my editor. God bless him.
Oh, you don't do it live?
We don't do it live. No, we just kind of started the process that way, and we're going to launch it all at once, which will be really fun. So
okay, cool. Yeah. Love to be part of it.
Awesome.
If anybody else out there, hey, I want to give a couple good shout outs: Diana, Bridget, Sarah, junior, senior. I don't know if that's a junior, senior. I just want to know. Always
mom and daughter.
I don't know. I just a very good person, and always there, supportive. So I appreciate it. So, and there's Kelly O'Hare, I should say.
Kelly O'Hare. And Crispy Wrights. Always got a shout out to Crispy Wrights. You had a great conversation with him last couple weeks too.
Oh yeah. That story. Wow.
Yeah.
So that was good. That was a good story. I want Remy to meet Braden.
Yeah. Oh, that would be beautiful.
Yeah, that's a story that I want to create. So hopefully
make it happen.
Hopefully we can make it happen. Anyways, I appreciate your time. And just a quick reminder, everybody, other than the dogs, that's not Remy, promise.
That's my 3.
Won't be back till September the 14th, where we'll have the story of Gary and April. And we're going to talk about the life story of their love story of them. And it's going to be a great episode. I can't wait to have that one. So in the meantime, I wish everybody a great summer. The rest of the summer, go enjoy yourself, get out, go get away from the computer, and take some of Erin's advice. Just get out and go do something. Go do the garden, go for a walk, go do something. And I appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me. It's been fun.
Yeah.